So GB and Smith, what do? Well, we do solutions. We call them 360 Suite, and you see the solutions on the screen here. And just before I carry on, don't worry. This is not death by slides. There's very few slides and a lot of technical demos today. And please do ask questions at any time. I will review them at the end only, if you don't mind. But yeah, please do ask questions. So yes, we have solutions, to extend the usage, I guess, of your SAP Business Objects. So our solutions will either enhance features that exist in Business Objects, but maybe are not good enough for some of you, and we add features that are just not available at all in Business Objects. And as you can see on the screen here, we have solutions to help with your regression testing, which I'll talk about today. In the next session, we have a guest panelist who will talk about their needs around report bursting. This is an example where Business Objects can do it, but with some missing functionality. So again, this customer of ours will talk about that. Then we have other things about metadata exploration, server monitoring, real complete version and lifecycle management, a solution to help with your security and your administration, backup disaster recovery, and universal management. So today, I'll demonstrate 5 of these solutions here and how they can help you with projects. And it doesn't really matter what the project is. I'll pick 4 of them, but projects that will have an impact directly or indirectly to your business objects. And this is how we could help you. Now, 360 Suite, and again, you'll hear this from our 4 panelists in the next session of the roundtable. But it is for everyday use, right? And you'll hear from them how they use our solutions every day. But the reality is, when we first speak to prospect, which thankfully become customers of ours, it's typically when they have a big project going on. And these could be the sort of projects. Now, clearly, upgrades and migrations, we're going to go to 4.3. We'll apply a service pack, but we need to test everything. Clearly this will have a significant impact on your business objects and perhaps impact on users. Now, other companies, and again, I'll talk soon about a real case study from a UK customer. Their scenario was migrating their on-premise estate, their servers, not only business objects, but databases as well, and they wanted to migrate to AWS, so everything to the cloud. So they have their own considerations here. Others, and again, I have a real case study, this time from a US customer, but we have many, doing database migrations. So we have customers migrating from Teradata or Netezza to Snowflake. The case study I'll talk about was to move from Oracle to HANA. So yeah, doing a database migration, yes, it's a back-end thing, but this will have an impact on business objects, the webbies, and the users. And finally, at the end of the day, like I said, there are many, many things which can impact your business objects. You'll update some operating system somewhere. You'll update your database. Your ETL will change, from time to time. And that includes your BW queries, your HANA views. Maybe you're just updating some drivers somewhere because a third-party vendor said those drivers will expire or end of life. These things can impact business objects. You will want to test or know what's going on, and we can help you a lot with all this. Now, just before we start, we always like to ask a few questions. Sebastian?
Sorry, apologize on the mute. Yeah, so it's always good to have a little bit more information about your plans. So which of the following projects are you planning to run in the next 12 months? A business objects upgrade, a database upgrade, infrastructure change, or other third-party changes that may affect your platform, or none of the above? I'll give you, it's multiple choice, obviously just click the one that's anonymous. And
I don't think I think it was meant, honestly, that all apply. Good. Yes, we're just curious to see, so to put things in perspective today, curious to see what are you guys are going to work on in the next year, especially with this business objects 4.3. been released late on Friday night. So wow, I can see there is a lot going on. Okay, let me close this here. Thank you for everybody who voted. Let me just share the result. Always nice to see what your peers are doing. Well, there's a lot going on over the next 12 months, right? So I hope you'll find this session interesting indeed. And again, I'll talk 360 here because this is where I work, but this is business objects in general. So again, do ask your questions. Okay, now, like I said, for those of you who were in the first session this morning, you've heard from Gregory Botticcio, product manager rather at SAP. SAP BusinessObjects BI 4.3 was released late on Friday. Now I went full geek, and on Saturday I downloaded the software, installed it, and I wrote this blog about it. So everything you want to know about what's been released, out of scope, release notes, where to find the software, and so on and so on. You have everything here. And today there'll be a lot of URLs in my slides today for you to use as a takeaway. Don't worry about screenshots and stuff like that. Again, this session is recorded. We will send the recording and the slides this week, so you have access to everything. Now, if you're coming from 4.x, let's say 4.0, 4.1, or 4.2, you can go directly to 4.3. Yeah. If you're not in 4.x, if you're on 3.1 or before, you will need to do a migration to 4.2 first before you can go to 4.3. So this is just a reference here. We wrote a white paper for what, I've been doing migrations for over 15 years, what I consider being a good methodology to perform a migration, how to prepare. You may want to do some cleanups and some promo before you promote. You want to test. You want to go live. So we wrote this 10 steps white paper. So this is a good read for those of you who are going to do a migration from an older version to 4.2 or to 4.3. Also, if you are, and I think that's going to be pretty much everybody, there's a lot of people here today, but most of you will be in 4.x already. There are two ways to go to 4.3. One is called an in-place, meaning you download 4.3 and you install it on top of your 4.x, 4.0, 4.1, or 4.2. Others will prefer to do it side by side, very similar to a migration project. You have your existing server in 4 point something. You want to build new 4.3 servers on the side and then do a migration. So I wrote a little blog here on our website. Again, you have the link here if you're interested, about the pros and cons of doing an in-place or side by side.
Patrick, apart from obviously your blog, do you have any return from clients about what they tend to do? Is there any preference out of in-place or side by side, or is it equals 50-50?
No, it's funny. When I wrote the blog, I actually, on LinkedIn, I posted this, and many people replied saying that their favorite method is side by side. Some people had bad experiences with doing in place. That's one thing. Other people, and that's the kind of stuff I write in that blog, some people just prefer to do side by side because it's time to upgrade their VMs, their operating system, to update other things, maybe change the architecture, tweak a few things. So side by side, sometimes it's a matter of preference, it's a matter of risk for others, it's limiting downtime, it's just a good opportunity to do some cleanup. It depends on many things, but smaller deployments at smaller companies, they may choose to do it in place. Again, there are pros and cons for each, but yeah, good question. Now, I said I would talk about a lot of case study and real life scenarios today. Orange, all of you will know this mobile phone and telecom company called Orange. They migrated from 3.1, actually, it's a very old version, from 3.1 to 4.2 just a few months ago. And if you go and have a look at the case study, clearly for them, and like for everybody here, I'm sure, testing was really important about giving the trust to their end users that the migration went smoothly, that things were tested so they could have confidence in the new versions of the reports, that the data would be the same. So that was really critical for them. And they got in touch with us, and we discussed and we demonstrated a solution which I'll present live now called 360 Bind. And 360 Bind is how to automate your testing, right? You want to test everything as often as you can in this. And again, you'll hear more about one of our panelists in the next session. But let me go and show you 360 Bind. You should see my screen. Good. Okay. So 360 Bind is very simple. So our 360 solutions are web-based. So I'm going to log on here to the 360 Suite web platform. And I'm actually logging on to BusinessObjects right here. 360 Bind is what we call regression testing. Regression testing means, okay, I have some reports right now. These reports can be webby, they can be crystal, and they can be analysis for Office. Okay, so we support these three types of document here. What we want is to take, let's call it a snapshot, the way they are right now. And that could be on your test server. And maybe you want to compare them with your dev server. It could be that you're in dev in 4.2. Then you're going to patch your dev server to 4.3, so in place, and you want to compare with 4.3. So you can compare the same server, you can compare multiple servers, you can compare between different versions, obviously. So regression testing. Now, I said 360 is something you run every day because, yes, when you do a migration, it's clear you want to test. When if you do a change on your ETL, or your universes, you want to change. But there are actions like these which will be performed very frequently. And again, you'll hear from Harry in the next session. They test on daily and weekly basis to make sure that the data is the way they want. So again, a great speaker. So once you've done your exports, and your exports is comparing, your before, let's say here Sales USA, and your after Sales USA, or you want to test, like I said, before and after, or analysis Office, before and after you make some changes. What you want to do is visualize what has changed. And here's an example here. Here, what did I do? Here, I migrated my SQL Server data to Snowflake, and I wanted to make sure that my Webby report worked the same. Well, I compared my Webby when they were pointing to the SQL universe, and I compared the same Webbies, but after they were pointing to the Snowflake universe, and I wanted to see what happened. Well, you create this job, you add 1, you add 50, you add 100 reports, it's up to you. So you can add 1 or many. It's automated, it's a task that runs in the background. Say, right, okay, what about this report here? Okay, this report, everything is in green, looks good. I don't see any oranges anywhere. This one has passed in terms of data, but has failed because I said, I want to know if there's an execution time different. So this can be used for performance testing as well. So it took 16 seconds before, it took 2 seconds after. It turns out it is good news. I'm happy. It's a time difference, but it's faster. So again, it's a regression, but it's a good one. This one here, this one takes a little bit longer to open because it has hundreds of pages. I'll show you. So we see, okay, 15 seconds before, 5 seconds after. That's great. We see though that some data is wrong. So we see I have a tab in green, it's good news. I have another tab in orange, it's not good. And you see, if I click on it, I see what the problem is. Well, in this case, the numbers are simply different. and you can jump. Now, it turns out that all the pages on these reports, nearly 1,000 pages, they all have a problem. If I jump to page 87, well, here you go. No, there's mistakes everywhere. And finally, if you have a report containing charts, we do the same thing. Again, we highlight in orange what the difference is. You see, before it was some numbers, now it's different. Because the numbers are different, clearly the chart and the axis and all this have been compromised. So this is a graphical representation. When you schedule this, you get an Excel document which can be saved on network share or emailed to you, so you know exactly what has happened during the regression. So again, this is about testing when you do a project, but test all the time. Okay, so that was a brief introduction, and we have lots of videos, and get in touch for live demos and more details and even evaluations of everything we do here. But that was 360bind.
Yeah, don't hesitate to ask any questions, obviously, as we proceed, and we'll come back to them at the end.
Okay, so next project is moving to the clouds. So I'll talk about Hermes ParcelNet, UK company. Of course, many of you will know, especially with all your home delivery during these strange times. For them, it was very simple. They wanted to lift and shift everything from their data center and go to AWS. So it was not about rebuilding servers or reinstalling anything. They just took the VM, uploaded them to AWS, and job done. Same server name, same everything, okay? So for them, they did not have to go through all of these steps here, which again, we have a white paper on the website if some of you are planning to do this. But for Hermes ParcelNet, like I said, their main concern was not, is there going to be regression of data? Because it's the same servers. So nothing changed to the database version, nothing changed to business objects. For them, their main concern, well, they had two concerns, I guess. It was to test that the database connectivity was going to work, change of infrastructure, right? So you take 360bind, exactly like I've demonstrated earlier, and you just run them. 360 will run all of these hundreds of documents. And if they refresh, well, at least you know that database connectivity has worked. Yeah, because that was a concern for them because, of course, of change of infrastructure. The second thing was performance. Before it was in their own data center, now it's hosted, in the cloud. How do we make sure that the users will have equal or better performance? So as I have demonstrated earlier, and I'll go back there right now with 360bind, and I'll open here analysis for office, just out of interest. No, and I picked the wrong one. Here we go. So this is analysis for office, before, after. But what was important for them was to compare the performance. So now you can see it was slower than before. But that's because I didn't set a threshold of failure based on the execution time. But of course, this is an option. As I've shown you before, you can do or not. And if you were testing hundreds of documents, again, thanks to that Excel document here, which you receive by email as notification, you can have a quick look and understand what happened and what worked well and what didn't. Okay, so we've talked here about upgrading your business objects, and we've talked about doing a change of infrastructure. Oh, okay, yes, I forgot we had this poll. Let me start this poll now before I carry on with two new projects.
So which statement reflects your organization testing policy? So testing everything and all the time, testing but only for some big projects, and just a small subset of reports universes given the size of the task. We often see that one. We barely do any testing. So I'll give you a couple of seconds to
Thank you for thank you for people voting. I see people are still voting. Please do. Again, we'll share the result. I think it's interesting to see what other companies. And there's a lot of people connected this morning. I'm sure you'll appreciate to see what you do versus what some of your peers are doing. Okay, let me close this so we can move on. Yeah, Sebastian, as we can see, it seems to, I mean, I'm not surprised by these results, right? Unless you have an automated solution, you're not going to test everything. So you have to take a subset, I guess. All right, okay. Well, I hope you've liked what you've seen with 360 Bind. Again, do get in touch if you want to discuss it further. Okay. Now, what we are asked most these days, and now maybe it will change with 4.3, I'll say for the last 6-8 months, what we see a lot is people doing database migration. So going from one vendor to another. And we have companies in the US, like I said, it was Netezza, because IBM is dropping support for Netezza. Well, they had to change databases. They went to Snowflake, and we had another very, very big company moving from Teradata to Snowflake. I'll talk about Lockheed Martin in a second. They went to HANA. So again, there's a lot of database migrations going on at the moment. And yes, you're not touching the business object software when you do this, fair enough. But when you migrate your data, if you leave some data behind, well, clearly that's a problem. If you don't replicate the security that you've applied, to your database, you'll have a data problem. It could be that in your old database, a varchar is now another data type, right? That will have an impact on the universes. So there are many, many things that, what's the name? Vendor-specific SQL, yeah? So although all the SQL type of databases are RNC compliant, well, some SQL statement will not be identical between one database or another. All of these things can have an impact on your Webby, of course. So this is a statement from Jay. Jay was part of our round table, like we're going to do in the next session, but round table in the US when we did that session. And for them, they are using our testing solution. They were very happy. But what's interesting actually is they used our metadata solution, and I do an entire session on this later today at 3 p.m. But they use our metadata solution to actually investigate which data business objects was, querying, which universe objects were where they were pointing to. And by doing this impact analysis, they actually saves hundreds of thousands of dollars by not migrating legacy data that they didn't need into HANA. So they kept that historical data, in Oracle on-premise, that's fine, but they did not have to move data that nobody needs to do BI to HANA. So they saved a lot in licenses, SAP licenses and hardware, of course. So many different ways of saving costs. Now, again, we have accelerators to do this. Do get in touch if you want to talk about database migration. Some of you will be simple. You say, right, I'm just going to migrate all of my data. So you're not like Jay, try to just migrate some of it perhaps. You say, right, I want to migrate all of my data. I don't have anything complicated. It's probably, it's going to be quite simple. Okay, fine. So we have a light accelerator for you, where you can do like Jay, understand your impact analysis, understand the SQL, understand everything that you have, and you can test, right? It's an accelerator. You can acquire it, you can rent it for the duration of your project, and then that's what we call the lift and shift. Now, other people, so we have another customer in the US, they're moving from HANA to Snowflake. Now, HANA, it's a the way their data was stored and the way they want to store it in Snowflake required a lot of transformation. So again, doing a full data inventory thanks to our solutions called 360 Eyes, that's something that you want to do. And then you want to validate performance. You can't validate regression. It will be new WebEs, new universes, but at least you can compare performance before and after. And finally, and I'll just go to this slide here, is what we call the lift and shift advance. This is, in my opinion, what's going to be the reality for most of you out there, right? You want to do like Jay, you want to do your pre-migration assessment, the documents that you have, and again, I do a full session at 3 p.m. on pre-migration assessment and impact analysis this afternoon. So you do your pre-migration assessment, you'll go ahead and migrate your data from Oracle to HANA, I don't know. Now, this is where your impact in BusinessObjects, will matter. If you are planning to go to Snowflake or Google BigQuery, for instance, these are only supported with UNX, not UNVs. So some of you may need to convert to UNVs to UNX. So that's even more things to test. Others, maybe you're on UNX already, or the database you're moving to is supported by UNV. That's great. But you may need to change things. Like I said, some select statements where the syntax will not work anymore. You have variables in WebEs that won't work anymore. So there'll be some work to do. And I'll do live demos of what we offer just on next slide. Now, before you go ahead and change formulas in WebEs and change stuff in universes, you want to make sure you have a solid backup. And by solid backup, I don't mean that you backed up your file store and your system database. Yeah, that's a complete backup and that's really good. But if you make a mistake in some WebEs or some universes, if you have to restore the entire server, well, first, it's very time consuming. Two, you will lose content that has changed between the backup and your work. So to have a solid backup is quite important, and I'll demonstrate that later. Now, again, you may need to update some documents, formulas, or maybe you need to repoint them to the new universe, especially if you move to UNV in UNX. So a lot of bulk updates, and then validation, like I said, like I did with 360 Mind, a lot of testing. And as I mentioned when we started all this, 360s, yes, they can help you with your projects. And again, we do have this database accelerator as a subscription for your project. But the reality, and we have over 600 customers, they do keep our solutions after the projects because they see the value of using them every day. Okay, I'm going to demonstrate 360 Eyes briefly, because again, I have a full session this afternoon. I'll show you 3 other solutions as well. And I look forward to your many questions. All right. Okay. I will start with 360 Eyes. 360 Eyes it's like an ETL. We extract metadata from your system database, we extract audit data, and we extract even data from the BusinessObjects file store. We open the WebEs, the Lumiras, the Crystal, the universes. We extract the metadata and we save that in a database. Yeah, it's your database. And using universes that we supply, using 80 pre-built WebE reports, or you feel free to build your own. It's very simple. And again, you'll hear from many of our panelists in the next session. You get the answers that you want. I talked about formulas earlier. If I go to so here's an example here. I want to know which, so let's say here was a formula in a WebE, and through testing, you've discovered that that formula is a problem following your database migration. I want to know which reports have this formula or this specific keyword, in a formula. So again, because we open the metadata from the file store, from the system database, I can give you the information that you need. Jay was saying we avoided migrating data. Perfect. Because you see here, if I go to my reports unused universe objects, I can tell you that this universe here, AdventureWorks, well, I only use 36 objects out of 21. Well, when I'm moving to Snowflake, I don't need to move, these universe objects, measures and dimensions that are not used if you choose not to. And again, you can go in the full detail and you see that this object here, country, is used in 5 reports. Great. You know that current address is not used anywhere. Now, that's an example. You would probably want to keep current address, but you see the point that you can avoid moving or moving a historical data that you don't need. More impact analysis. You want to find out this universe is used by which reports, because you want to test them, because you want to see the order of priority of doing things, and so on and so on. So 360 Eyes is about giving all the answers that you need. And again, if you're interested to know a lot more about this, because we support data services as well, 3 p.m. There's a session just about that. Okay, so I said before you go ahead and change your WebBs and your universes, you want to have a solid backup. Well, 360, we have a backup solution. It's very simple. The first time you run it, it takes everything that you have selected, and then when you run it, it's an incremental backup. Now, I know you have the recycle bin, but the recycle bin is only useful if you have deleted something, and it doesn't keep a history of objects, and it only keeps public documents, not personal documents, not users, right? So with 360 Plus, or our backup solution, 2 things here. You say, hey, I've just messed up a universe. It's not deleted, but you made changes and it's not what you wanted. At any point, you can go in our web interface, you select the object, and here you'll have, and see, you even have a history. You can say, no, the backup of today, the 16th, it's not good. It's I had already introduced a problem. I want to restore to the one before that. Perfect. You can even compare. See, if I compare, now this is going to compare the universe which is currently in BusinessObjects versus the universe which was backed up in May. And you see here highlighted changes that were made side by side. So you can absolutely know what's going on before you go ahead and restore. Now, I said we back up everything. So every object type that exists in BusinessObjects can be backed up. Now, I'm not going to demonstrate this with a public document, because you'll say, oh, but we have the recycle bin. And that would be true. But if I go here, my users, so this user here, well, this user has some groups, some security assigned. It has personal documents, it has inboxes. I'll go ahead and I'll delete it. So now, as you know, deleting a user, either manually or because something happened with your Active Directory or your LDAP, means that that user is gone. There's nothing you can do. For us, we have our own recycle bin, but the recycle bin of absolutely everything on your BusinessObjects. So in this case, it's a user I want to recover. I want to recover user 2. Here we go. Here's my backup. I want to restore it. And like I said, you can restore its categories if you want, its inbox, its personal folders, if it has content. So it's very flexible what you want to keep or not keep. You click restore. It takes a few seconds. Okay, it's done. If I go here and I refresh, you see that user 2 is back. See, it's not today's date. It's the exact same timestamp. It's the same group membership. The user is back exactly the way it was before. So what I've demonstrated here is applicable for everything in BusinessObjects. Okay, so you have your backup, and now you want to maybe update the universes. So you know that your universes have specific SQL, and this specific SQL will not work. Now, of course, you can open the information design tool, and you can go to your business layer, right? And you can open objects at a time and go and change the SQL. That's fine. But if you have universes and you have thousands of objects, what you may want to do is go to our universe management, take your universe, export it to Excel. Okay, here you go. And once the universe is open in Excel, you see everything, your dimensions, your measures, your details, description fields. You see the full select here. So if you knew that some of the syntax was wrong, you do a find and replace. You can update your measures here, of course, exactly the same thing. You know, something's wrong with the way the syntax is. And then when you're done, you know, you just do find and replace, you update your Excel, and then you go here and you re-import the spreadsheet, and automatically, you know, the business layer of the UNX will be updated. So very powerful. Another thing we can do to help is formulas. If you detect that one formula is not going to work, right, and that formula is used, thanks to analysis, is used all over the place, we give you the ability to do this again. I know they are in this folder. That's just an example. Export in Excel. So these are my two reports. These reports have these formulas here, yes? And I know this formula is wrong. Well, whatever is wrong, you go ahead, fix it, find and replace. And once you're done, you go back to the same place here, but you update your WebB document variable. So using one spreadsheet, one place, you can update the formulas stored inside of WebBs in bulk in one go. So really, really powerful. Okay, and there was one more test I wanted to do. No, that's it. I've showed you everything. So eyes for your analysis, unif to bulk update the universes, plus for your backups, and view for the formulas. Now, you don't need to remember this name. Yeah, you just call us and say, what's the backup thing? And I will be there to help you. Okay, and I'll finish on this here before the Q&A. Think about these other things that will impact your business objects. Touching your ETL, touching your universes, changing your drivers, security model absolutely anywhere, operating system, service pack patching, your databases, you know, a lot of these things, they're outside of the box. So third-party dependencies, but this may affect either your WebBs, your data, your performance, your security. So again, with our solutions, we can help with absolutely all of these things here. So before we go to the Q&A, we have a final question, a final poll, I should say. Seb?
Yeah. So your interest level in this webinar topic, why you joined, if it just increase your knowledge, and in which case we'd be happy to send you a little bit more information. Or if you'd like a demo without having an immediate need, planning a project, so just give us a little bit of information, and we're happy to schedule a demo on that. Or indeed, if you'd like some keys, then we're happy to set you up with a free trial. So just let us know. As I give you a couple of seconds to answer that.
Yeah, and I want to thank you. There's been a couple of questions, so again, last chance for questions. After this poll, we'll go ahead and well, have a look at the different answers. All right, okay, let me close this here. Okay, so Sebastian, while I look at the questions, if you can maybe cover this slide quickly.
Yeah, sure. So Patrick mentioned earlier some of the solutions, and he's covered, obviously, given a demo of some of our solutions, but we cover a variety of use cases. So not just upgrades, migrations, but automating daily tasks, managing security, compliance reports, and obviously backups and restorations. your environment. So, any questions or any information you like, we'd be happy to just let us know. We'd be happy to come back to you on that. So, Patrick, any questions?
Yes, let me change the slide here. Okay, so thank you for the questions. Right, I'll do this quickly because we have 2 minutes, and questions we have not answered again will go. They will be answered offline by the end of the week. So, question from Morton, because, well, first, this is not just a UK event, it's a EMEA North. We have a lot of people joining us from the Nordics. So, hello, our people from Scandinavia, perhaps Finland. Question from Morton. How is the execution time defined for the regression test? Is it query refresh time, rendering time? Good question, Morton. Thank you. When we validate the performance in 360bind, that time you've seen in seconds, that's the time it took to run the entire instance. So the same way as you would schedule business objects, right? You click start, it gets the data, formats everything, then it saves it in the output. That's the entire process time. That's the time you see that we reuse in 360bind. Okay, there's a question regarding the backups. More questions or details how it works. It's simple. You choose. Actually, I can load this. Can load the demo. That will be even easier. When you create a task, a backup task, you can say you want to run it, at different intervals. Of course, all of our tasks support external schedulers if it's what interests you, and then you can decide what you want to back up. I guess in reality, you probably want to back up everything, right? So you just click on everything. We support, if you have a big environment, you can do things in parallel to improve performance, because we have customers with 500,000 WebB reports. Yes, so we do support this very large platforms. And what we back up, so everything gets saved in a on a folder on the disk storage somewhere, right? So 360 needs a small repository database, and it needs disk space to save the 360 plus. And every single object in your business objects becomes an actual backup file inside of the 360 folder, which is why you can restore, absolutely individual things here. I have time. I should stop, but I'll just do one more question. It was about the 360 Eyes database. Yes, it is, like I said before, it's your own database. It's on premise. You keep everything. It's not, in the cloud. So you just say, we support 5 or 6 databases, so SQL, Oracle, HANA, that sort of things. And you say, you just tell 360 Eyes where your business objects is to extract the metadata. You tell 360 Eyes where the database is to save everything. And then after that, it's simply a matter of, like I did, consuming your report, or you go ahead and you can build your own using the universe we have provided. But again, at 3 p.m., I'll do further demos where you see users and groups and sessions and so on. Everything is there. Okay, Sebastian, this is all the time we had for this session.